You told us last night on the plane that of all of the different instances that you recalled, have you since been made aware or remembered of other instances, and if so, how many?
I think it is obvious that this is something that was deeply regrettable. I am wary of being definitive about this because the recent pictures that came out, I had not remembered. And I think the question is, how can you not remember that? The fact is, I didn't understand how hurtful this is to people who live with discrimination every single day. I have always acknowledged that I come from a place of privilege, but I now need to acknowledge that that comes with a massive blind spot.
Well, joining me now is a friend of mine who thinks and organizes his thoughts in ways that I don't even see until he explains it. You know who I'm talking about. He's a fan favorite. He's so smart. I follow him on Twitter religiously because he always is analyzing things with the mind of a lawyer and a politician together. You know who I mean, my friend Manny Montenegrino, who joins us now via Skype from Ottawa. Manny, great to see you again. I rely on you to help me make sense of the craziness out there.
Well, thank you very much, Ezra. It's always a pleasure being with you. We need to get information out, and you're the person that does it and does it so effectively.
Well, you're nice to say that. Whenever you're on the show, people watch. They watch for a long time. They share it. And I got to stay out of the way because we want to hear you. Everyone's heard from me enough. Let's get to 4 of your tweets that help organize things. So I'm going to read a tweet that you put, and I'd like you to expand on that. And if there's a visual image, we'll put it up to. So I'm just going to go through the tweets in order. I've got them written down here. And I encourage everyone to follow Manny on Twitter if you're on Twitter. The first one says, this is one about Barack Obama, and it's a small point, but I think it's a good point. Nothing from Barack Obama on Trudeau brown face, black face, no tweets, no statements. They have a bromance. Trudeau is a racist, admitted he's racist with now 3 separate blackface. Proves Obama is as much an imposter and hypocrite as Trudeau. Both used racism to get power. Very interesting, very tough comments. Take it away, Manny.
Well, absolutely right. I mean, both, I've watched the American politics and I've watched Barack Obama, in my view, use basically race baiting to promote his agenda, to promote his presidency, and very successfully, and it works. But we have a real racist problem. I was subjected to racism when I came into Canada, and I still am today. But these politicians do more harm. So I want to expose them. I mean, I just looked because I know there's a strong bromance. He came to Ottawa and have a beer. Obama did with Justin Trudeau. I would be very upset if I found one of my friends, especially if I was a black American and I found one of my friends that I have this bromance with that has not only 3 instances of black faces, but plenty, as he said in his own interview, he has plenty out there. I mean, Ezra, I can't think of, you may know one person that may have done blackface over your 50-year period. Yeah. You may know one, but to know one person that has done it systemically, often, and once as a teacher. Yeah. And there are so many that he can't mention. If I were Barack Obama, I would certainly, if I cared about the issue of racism, if I cared about, stomping out racism wherever it exists, even if it exists in your bromance friend, you would do it. Yeah. And he didn't. And that saddened me. He didn't, because what that tells me that the issue of racism is not as important to him as perhaps his other aligned issues with Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, I understand that Michelle Obama, the former First Lady, is coming through Canada to support her book. She's got a book out there. She's coming on a book tour. I don't think Michelle Obama was particularly close to Justin Trudeau. I think it was more Barack and Justin. I think the likelihood of Canada's media party asking Michelle Obama about it is pretty close to zero, unless, I don't know, Time Magazine had a reporter in town. What do you think she would say if she had? Is she the same way as Barack? Would she say, it was misunderstood? Or is she, in some ways, I think she's harder line than her husband.
Yeah, well, she is, and she probably will not say much, but there is a pattern. I was really impressed, and I must say, I'm impressed with Jagmeet Singh. Obviously, I'm not an NDP. I would not vote. I don't like their policies. But he's a very impressive young man, a very smart lawyer, and a person who assembles information well. He used the word pattern. You see, and I think so did Andrew Scheer. But he was the one who loudly said it. And Ezra, let's go through the pattern. I have a tweet, and I tried to find my tweet a few years ago where I said Justin Trudeau is a racist. If you might recall, I created the hashtag Justin Feminist, which just to portray that he wasn't truly a feminist. And it's now proven to be true. But on the issue of racism, there is a pattern. And Ezra, let's go through it. These aren't just simple things. I have seen, there are two types of racism. I mean, we came from Italy, and our family was in construction, and I worked in construction before I went into law school. So I saw the blue-collar racism, and I saw the white-collar racism. The blue-collar racism, the guys in construction site just wants to fight you. They don't like you. They don't think who you are, whatever. The white-collar ones, what I'll call the elite racism, are the people that they like you in the room and so on, but they're condescending, and they truly are as racist as the people in the blue collars. And here's the pattern that I've picked up from Justin Trudeau. Number one, Indigenous, twice.
Yeah.
Think about this. This is just a few
Manny,
years ago.
Hold a second, because we've got a tweet from you exactly on this point. Can I show it on the screen and go through it?
I've added to it. Sure.
I was going to take you through it. So let's put this on the screen, and I'll take you through it. I think it's we've numbered it number 1 on our page here, and it says history of bigoted, racist acts and remarks by Trudeau, worst PM. Number 1. Quebecers are better than Albertans. Number 2, Italian immigrants are the same as ISIS. Number 3.
Yeah, well, that one.
Oh, sorry. Let's go through. Yeah. So, you know what? We've got the clips of these here. Well, let's just show that first one. Quebecers are better than Albertans. Hold a sec. Here we go.
Quebecers are better than the rest of Canada because, we're Quebecers.
Manny, he wasn't a teenager when he said that. He was in his 20s. He would say, I was just young and didn't know anything. I don't know how long you can make that excuse. He was 29 when he did blackface. He was in his 20s when he said Quebecers are better than Albertans, certainly. What do you make of that?
Well, it's just part of the evidence. Of what he truly sees. Racism, bigotry isn't just fighting someone or telling someone that they're terrible. It's a presumption that you're better than them. And certainly he's got that. The one that obviously struck me the most is the ISIS comment.
Yeah. Here, let's play that. I remember exactly when that was. Someone asked about ISIS, and he actually compared returning ISIS terrorists to, I think he said, Greek and Italian immigrants in the 50s. Here, take a quick look at that clip from a town hall. Just unbelievable. Take a look.
I just want to know how your stance on ISIS is going to help Canadians in any way. I need to know how you're going to protect future Canadians, like my young daughter, and 10, 15, 20 years from now, when you're letting people in with an ideology that just does not conform to what we're doing here. So, I'd really like to know what your take on things.
Absolutely. No, I think that's gives me an opportunity to talk about first of all, the fact that one of the reasons Canada is successful as a country is because we have been open to people fleeing persecution, fleeing war zones, looking for a better life for themselves and their kids. That's been the story of this country from the time the first European settlers came to be received by Indigenous people. People were fleeing conflict, poverty, difficult situations, and came to Canada to build a better life for themselves. And successive waves of people have in every different time.
every different wave. And when we welcomed in waves of refugees, whether it was the Ismaili refugees in the early 70s, whether it was the Vietnamese boat people in the early 80s, whether it was people fleeing the devastation of the Second World War from Southern Europe in the 50s and 60s, the Italian communities, the Greek communities, the Portuguese communities, and others, our country is so much the better for it.
Manny, he was actually comparing returning terrorists to just European immigrants, like natural immigrants of the 50s. I think that's insane.
Well, it's not insane. It's racist, because what he sees is a bunch of different colored people and put them all together, and they're kind of all the same. Well, we're not. I mean, my father immigrated to this country. We had to borrow money to get to this country. We did it legally. We actually followed all the rules. And it just broke my heart to be compared to ISIS. Well, because we're all from somewhere else, and we all came here. And so, therefore, we're all the same. I mean, that is just so offensive. I mean, I've had Italian friends, Greek friends come up to me, and, we're just dismayed by that comment. And that's just part of what I gather, the evidence or the pattern to show some bigotry. We talk. Sorry, go ahead, Ezra.
No, I was going to say, and people who object to ISIS terrorists, they're not objecting to an ethnicity. They're objecting to the fact that they murdered people. And he's comparing that legitimate fear and objection to real terrorists returning from a field of battle to inappropriate prejudice against people from Italy or Greece. So he's the one who's comparing not just terrorists, but people's reactions to terrorists. He's actually saying, oh, if you object to terrorists, you're no better than someone who objects to Italians.
Yeah, well, that's so hurtful, absolutely. And that's the part of it. That's a part of the case that I mean, if I were preparing a case and I had to convince a jury, is this man a bigot? Is this man racist? Well, like I said, I've listed 6 items, and we've talked about a few of them. The next one is the Japan PM visiting Canada, and twice, not once, but twice captured in video, referring to him as China.
Yeah, let's put that up on the screen. I remember that. I mean, I think when you're about 10 or 12, you realize, you've grown up in Canada, you realize that there's a Japanese and Chinese and Korean, but by the time you're in your 40s and you're the Prime Minister and you're getting briefing notes, you should know they're different. And in fact, they're extremely different. Here, take a look at this clip twice. He makes the confusion. Take a look.
On the occasion of 90 years of diplomatic relations between Canada and China, Canada and Japan, the tremendous friendship that we celebrate every day between Canada and China. Thank you, Shinzo.
I don't expect Justin Trudeau to be a master of economic policy or trade policy, but at least remember who you're talking to. Just pretend that you've been paying attention.
Well, and I put that in a category, and I know some people say, well, you're overreaching, Manny, but I put it in a category of a form of bigotry or racism. To confuse the Japanese and Chinese is what a lot of Canadians do, because they are not, thinking it out. The Prime Minister having the PM of Japan there and making that statement is what I hear when I used to work in my construction site, when people confuse Chinese and Japanese. So there's another piece of evidence.
All right, let's put your tweet back up, because we skipped one. We went through Quebecers better than Albertans, Italian immigrants are the same as ISIS. We skipped down to calls Japan PM Chinese. Let's go back to number 3, cultural appropriation India trip. My favorite, there was a lot of amazing costumes there, but to me the absolute best was this picture when he was in Bollywood. So that's where they dress up a bit. And the Bollywood actor was just dressed in a sharp suit. It was Trudeau pretending he was going to some lavish Indian wedding or something. If in Bollywood they're saying, guy, you're a little over the top, you're being ridiculous, but he didn't get it. He didn't think he was ridiculous.
Well, exactly. And that's, again, another pattern, another piece of evidence to show a form of bigotry or racism. Now, Ezra, this only happened, what was it, 2 years ago, I believe now? This isn't when he was 29 years old or 30 years old. This is when it was clear the language in all the social media about cultural appropriation. I mean, years ago, we talked about not dressing children a certain way. So this is the prime minister who goes on an India trip 2 years ago when he's 45 years old, and he does cultural appropriation. That tells me, again, I put that in a category of this person doesn't have the sense and is, in fact, there's a bit of evidence with respect to him being a bigot or a racist, not knowing.
Yeah. You know, here's the thing, is any one of these things, maybe you could overlook this one or call that one a momentary lapse, but all of them together, you say the word pattern, but not just that. He is the person who holds his opponents to an exquisite nicety. Oh, you said Aboriginal instead of Indigenous. You're a racist. You said Indian instead of Aboriginal. You said humankind instead of peoplekind. He's the one who's nitpicking everyone else. He's word policing, tone policing, thought policing us. And so I'm not sure if he deserves the leniency. Let me show you one that I just think is amazing. It goes to his relations to Aboriginal folks. And he has that, you know, fake tattoo of the Thunderbird on his shoulder. And he claims to be deeply caring about Aboriginal folks. I showed the other day that video of him laughing that he was going to cut Patrick Brazeau's hair because it humiliated an Indian warrior. Here he is saying Indian kids, all they need are canoes. Take a look at this. What a weird thing this was to say. Here.
Spoken with a number of chiefs who said, yeah, we need a youth center. You want to talk about young people? We need a youth center in our community. Okay, well, what do you want in that youth center? Well, you know, we need TVs and lounges and sofas so they can hang around. And when a chief says that to me, I pretty much know they haven't actually talked to their young people. Because most of the young people I've talked to are asking for a place to store their canoes and paddles so they can connect back out on the land.
Manny, again, I'm not going to be that harsh on any given guy, Joe Blogs, who gets that a little bit rough or confuses Japan and China. But if you're doing it again and again and again and again and again, but you're holding everyone else to the perfect standard, I don't think you get to ask for any wiggle room.
Well, that's true, Ezra. And with your reference, and I have listed that in my tweet about the kids need canoes and canoe sheds. I mean, think about how absurd and how racist that is. This is, and by the way, at least thankfully he was called out by a lot of chiefs that was a pure racist comment. Now, that was it. The chiefs said that. To sit there and say in the year 2018 that Indigenous kids are like some backwater kids that just want to canoe and fish, and these kids aren't competent, intelligent, smart, modern, sophisticated, ability to deal with, computers and so on. It is as racist as you can get. Now, the chiefs called them out, and it did make it. So, but when you add it all up, there's a pattern. Yeah. If no one escapes the racism, if Italians, Greeks, Indigenous, the Japanese, the Indian trip, if no one escapes it, you're painting a picture that the person is racist. It isn't just one group, it's all. Yeah. And that's why I'm trying to create a case. There's that last one that's not in my tweet that I just added. And that is, and I forgot to add it in my tweet, and there's always a character limit, but NP Selena. Remember that call?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Remember that call? She was so infuriated when the prime minister yelled at her, and she quit. Yeah. She yelled at her because he said, I can't lose a black MP.
Yeah. Well, and he also would basically said, I gave you everything you have. And he had a similar approach with Jody Wilson-Raybould. He pretended that they were on par with him, but when things got tough, he said, I made you. I can unmake you. You're only there because of me. Shows he's a fake supporter of minorities. Fake.
But this is what I've been trying to say to you, Ezra. I had the benefit of seeing racism, as I said, in the blue-collar construction. And let me tell you, if I had a choice of the blue-collar construction guys, racist, versus the elite in law that I was in, a racist, the condescending elite law. I'll take the blue-collar guys anyway, any day, because they're at least honest, and I could reach them. But it is that condescending that I am better than you. I've given you that chance. Ezra, that's exactly what you picked up on, was very important. When he said that to Selena, and he said that to Jane Philippot, like, that is what racism is. I've done this for you. You part of this group. Therefore, and this is what it's all about. And racism, and it shouldn't be that. It should be everyone is equal. Everyone should be treated the same. Everyone should be respected, and everyone should feel that. And he doesn't. So here, Ezra, we talk about you're a lawyer, I'm a lawyer, and people on Twitter say, well, that one thing doesn't matter, and of course not any one of that I've listed. But when you create a pattern, and you know what a circumstantial case is, when you go to a court, and whether it be a criminal case or whatever, and you present 10 things to the jury, one of them would not stand, 2 of them may not stand, but when you assemble 10 different factual points that keeps leading to, I even went this far, Ezra. I went this far as to see, well, he got married at age 34. Did he embrace some good close friends at age 34 that he would make his groomsmen? So I looked at his wedding photo, and you can put that up too. But and I wanted to see, well, because if you've lived a long life and a long shared experience life, and you've come across a lot of people, you might find a Sikh as a friend, or an Italian, or something. And I looked at that, and there are basically it's a pure white group of groomsmen. At age 34, those are his closest friends. And now, of course, that doesn't mean anything in and of itself, but it's just, I was hoping to see, a person of color in his, because he speaks so highly of it.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, remember, his best friend in college was Gerald Butts. And and we saw that crazy video of him dressed up, sort of monkeying around with a banana. When you got blackface and you're doing the banana thing, you're making a statement that blacks equal apes. I'm sorry, that's the aspersion there. And he loves showing that he is black everywhere, including on his knees. It was really weird. And you don't get to do that. And don't tell me for a second Gerald Butts wasn't aware of all of this since they were kids, and then get to come out and say some pieties about how diverse you want everyone to be, and then live this quiet life. Sorry, he's got this public life where butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. He's holier than thou. And then when the cameras are off, he's the weirdest guy. I don't know anyone else who's done blackface anytime else. I remember when we had a costume party in law school, 1996. And this was in Alberta, which people call redneck or whatever. There was never, that would be so weird. If someone came in like that, everyone would say, oh, are you sure you want to do that? He was that way in 2001, and no one in his circles said no to him. That's what's weird. And Manny, I want to show you the next tweet you did, because you talk about 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. Once is a mistake, twice, is maybe a blind spot. When you do this again and again, let me read this. There are now 3 recorded incidents of Trudeau blackface. He actually said there are plenty. Sexual assaults are rarely recorded, but we have one of fake feminists sexually groping reporter Rose Knight. Logic dictates there are many more sexual assaults. Will victims come forward? Now, I got to say that's speculation, but I think it's a legitimate thing, because we know for a fact a lot of people knew about the blackface. It took Time magazine to break the silence. A lot of people knew about the Rose Knight thing. It was public. I think it was the Toronto Sun that broke the silence. I think that there is a mountain of bad behavior by Trudeau on how he treats women, how he treats minorities, but there's this quiet agreement amongst the fancy people that they're not going to talk about it, and it took Time magazine to break the logjam.
That's right. And, it's absolute speculation, but we know this. And if you really do care about sexual assault, and you do know the stats, and you do look at it, clearly for every one that's reported, there are 10 unreported. So we have one that's been reported. So in a world where we do drive and we try to deal with issues, my concern is there are more, and the behavior hasn't changed, Ezra. I mean, we have seen just recently the way he handles himself around young women or even the Governor General. It is just a pattern that just is a bit concerning. Yeah. So it's not that it existed in the past and it's gone. It continues to this day.
Yeah, you're so right. You know, there was this moment on the airplane scrum, he was asked, was that appropriate for you to grope that young woman that way? He said, oh, we're old friends. That's exactly what the lie he used to describe his relationship with the Aga Khan, I point out. Anyway, I want to refer to your last tweet we have here. Excuse me. Let me read it. It says, imagine if Trudeau applied his standards to himself as he does to others. He'd be fired 3 times. First, sexual groping reporter. Second, ethics guilty 13 separate times. Third, blackface Trudeau. And that's the question. Any other candidate in the Liberal Party, and certainly any other Conservative, would be overboard by now. Either kicked out by the pressure of the media, or look at Patrick Brown. Kicked out by his own party at midnight. He was dispatched at that night by his own party, who said, "We're not going to tolerate this." The Liberals haven't done that, and Trudeau doesn't have the self-respect or the conscientiousness to do it himself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so when you look at there are, I think I have listed 7 people that Trudeau has disciplined for doing sexual inappropriate conduct, much less than what he did. And they were all dismissed, some without a hearing, most without a hearing. He didn't even have a hearing on his own matter. He refused the Liberal Party or the committee to review it, to have a hearing on his inappropriateness. So yes, I mean, the pattern is there, that there are. So when you're building a case, Ezra, as you know, and you sit there and you see, you see a whole pattern with respect to racism and bigotry. And I've listed 6 separate items. I think each day I can think of another and I add it on. I see the same pattern with respect to the way Justin Trudeau treats women. We see it's clear. And if you make a list of those patterns with respect to, rushing across the House of Commons and elbowing an NDP MP.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah, and so that, I have never in either, certainly it's a House of Commons, the Prime Minister has never crossed the floor in the House of Commons, and he did so in a rage that he physically assaulted a woman, and of course he apologized for that afterwards. But when you look at it, a true feminist sees that woman there. And I'll give you another good example, Ezra, and it happened in my life. And that is when he had Joshua Boyle in his PMO office. Right. Ezra, that happened to me. I had a client who, they were new clients, and they came to see me. The husband and wife were there, and I didn't know who they were. And I was just talking to them 15 minutes. And within 10 minutes, I knew that woman was in despair. Yeah. I could feel it. I could see, a battered woman. You see it. Yeah. And I felt that. I exited the meeting room. We ended up getting help for that woman, and she was moved into a battered home. So you can see it. How a feminist like Justin Trudeau is in the PMO and sees this woman, and I looked at pictures of her when it was there, and I could see that she was an abused, battered woman. And now there's obviously a bunch of criminal trials. So that there's that's part of it too. It isn't about the real feminist. He's not. A real feminist would see it. A real feminist sees abuse. A real feminist doesn't run across and elbows an MP in the chest. So again, when you build up all the evidence and you build it all up, Ezra, on both counts, it just simply points to the person who he is.
Yeah.
And I think Canadians know. I think Canadians are seeing it.
Yeah, he's an imposter. Well, let me ask you a practical question. I think there's about 32 days left till Election Day. And the idea, I mean, I mentioned a moment ago, the Ontario PCs defenestrated Patrick Brown, but they had at least a couple months. I'm trying to remember the exact timing before the election. We're in the election. The idea that the Liberals would throw Trudeau overboard is almost unthinkable. Not totally, but almost unthinkable. And I don't even know who would be there. Would it be Mark Garneau? I don't know who would it be Kathleen Wynne herself to jump in? What happens if over the course of the next 32 days, all these things that didn't vet Trudeau in 2015, if we vet him hard in 2019, if we rely on American journalists to vet him, and he just gets more and more and more damaged, do the Liberals swap him out, or does Andrew Scheer cross the finish line and maybe the NDP and the Greens pick up 20 or 30 seats each too? How does it play out? If he's so damaged, does he quit? Is he fired? What happens?
Yeah, I don't see a replacement. They had a great opportunity. Actually, I tweeted that my advice was that I tweeted that by the Ides of March, Trudeau would be gone because of the SNC LEVANT affair. I mean,
they could have done it back then. They could have done it and rebuilt in time.
And it would have been a brilliant thing to do. And we because there's a lot more out there. Ezra, I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to think something else is going to fall just as big as before the election. Because when you have this much of a pattern, I mean, we've talked about maybe 20 improprieties that he's done, both sexual, feminist, fake feminist, and racist and bigot. I mean, there's a lot there. There's a whole pattern of behavior. I just loved hearing today that he talked about, it's his life of privilege. I mean, it's just, you recall that legal case in America where they used affluenza?
Right,
as an excuse. Can you imagine saying, I've been so rich and so privileged and never been around those people of color that I really didn't understand. So please excuse me. My God, how can you go there? How can you say that? I mean, it is those with privilege that should know more about the plight of those that are trying to be part of a whole Canada, and he's missed that completely.
Well, listen, Manny, it's great to catch up with you, and I love following your tweets, and I love how you organize your thoughts and different themes. I want to say this, and I mentioned this again, and I know you said the same thing in your own way. We talked about the circumstantial case against Trudeau. I think there are a few absolutely damning facts here. Some of them are not quite as powerful, but they do reinforce the narrative. I think it is his own statement of purity, his own endless criticisms of others, his own endless apologies for the flaws of generations past that makes him properly called a racist now. If he were just some guy who stumbled here and stumbled there, like a Joe Biden, just misspeaking here, being a little bit malapropisms there, that'd be one thing. But he is the enforcer of the perfect political correctness. And I think because of his own rules and standards, we get to hold him to that level. And I think by his own rules, he is a racist, even if we would give a pass to someone else who just stumbled into those things. Last thoughts to you, Manny.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And people my age who have seen more racism, in the 70s and 80s, when you're as young as Justin Trudeau and you are as woke as he says he is, I remember him saying on the Rose Knight sexual assault matter, he said, I've been a feminist since I've been in university. Well, if you declare yourself to be a feminist since your days at university, that means you're a woke person. You understand racism, you understand feminism, you understand that. And that means he's at a different, he's actually said, I am more informed than you older people or you less informed.
Right.
So when he says that, he said it. He said he was a woke person. I was championing feminism in university. That means you knew, and that means you did it. I have friends of mine that say, stupid Italian jokes, golf friends of mine that are 75 years old, and sure, they're racist, and you let it go, and they don't understand. But these people were in a different time. Justin Trudeau holds himself out to be at a current young man time, and he holds himself out to be a person that understood all these things at university. So there is no excuse for it. There is, I would say, there's a bona fide case to prove that he is a racist and a bigot.
Well, we'll leave it there, Manny. It's great to see you again. I love following your tweets, and I love the fact that you are always bringing facts that we maybe forgot about. You're bringing the threads together, and I think
That's right.
I can see how powerful that would be in a courtroom situation. Nice to see you, my friend. I'm sure there'll be much to talk about in the weeks ahead. Yeah, you too.
Right, take care.
Right on. Well, there you have it. Manny Montenegrino, the CEO of Think Sharp. I encourage you to follow him on Twitter.